Now there's times where we might want content to be floated on the side, but maybe we don't want content to be on the right hand or left hand side of it. We just want to float the image to the right or left. We can, use text align for that and align, the image to the side and the rest of content, in another div or something. But what we want to do is sometimes we just want to stop the floats. And to stop a float, we need to use something called a clear. And again, these classes can be whatever you want. And for right now, I'm going to apply something called a clear both. And I'm going to apply right here at the end an empty div tag. Let's not make it empty. Let's put in something called clear me. And I'm going to apply this class in here called the clear class. And we'll look at that, and you can see this clear me here showed up. Okay. Now what this does is it says, all right, I'm going to look both left and right, and to see if I'm clear of any floats. So let's go back here and let's do a left hand clear, and we're going to refresh that. Now what happened there is that clear me was placed up here on the side, and it said, am I clear of any floats to my left hand side? And it saw clearly a floated image here on the left, and so it wasn't clear of that, so it bumped down a line. Then it said, am I clear of any floats to my left? No, and so it came down a line and continued until it got here, and then said, am I clear of any floats to my left? And there are no floats over to the other side, and so therefore it stood there. So if I was to change that to right, we would expect the opposite. This clear me is looking over here to say, hey, are there any floats over here? And there's not, so I'm going to stay, and that's fine. So often with a clear, you can put it into an empty tag or something like that. I'm going to empty that out so it kind of disappears, and you can see how that goes there. Another thing you can do is you could apply that class equals clear to the next item underneath it and just get rid of this if you wanted to completely. And refresh it, and you can see it looks just the same. So an empty div or applying it to the one after is pretty much the same thing. Again, you can kind of see some examples of that. We have a left hand item or object floated, and we have a object here on the right hand side floated. And when we apply a clear to this paragraph, okay, and we apply it to the left, then it says, am I clear of any floats? No, continues down till it gets to here. It's now clear of the left hand float, even though this is on the right. If I flip it to the right, you can see how it goes down further because it had to keep going down until it's clear of it. And if we're clear of both the right and the left, then it can just go down as far as you want. Now, for the most part, these are things that will be used quite a bit hand in hand. If you ever use a float, it's almost 100% of the time you're going to use a clear pretty soon after it. In a previous video, you saw an example I had where I took this paragraph and I had it down here, and I'm not applying a clear, and you can see how this image came down. Well, what happened was that history decided to fill up on its right hand side. And so if you ever get weird things where stuff is breaking outside of normal flow, because floats do break normal flow, it's really important that as soon as you use a class like a float left, as soon as you're done, just apply a div with a class clear on it, and make sure it's clearing both the right hand and left hand side. That's probably the best practice and going to fix the most problems. And you can see how it shoved it now underneath, and now we're clear of any floats, and we can continue on with the rest of the content. There are a couple other things you can use that are kind of cool. There's one thing called a clear me hack, or a clearfix hack, I guess I probably should say. And a clearfix hack is really nice. I really like the clearfix hack. And it's been around for a while. There's lots of versions of it. And the way that this works is that you have a group of items. And inside of that, you can have a whole bunch of stuff floated. So this is floated, that's floated, that's floated. And inside this group, you would think that after these are all floated, you would have to apply a clear, right? Well, this class is going to have a clear inside of it. And the way that this is accomplished is by using an after pseudo selector, and we haven't learned about that yet, but what happens is after the object is done, which is underneath this div, it applies some blank content, displays it as a table, and clears both the right and left hand side. And it's just a very simple way to basically hide some content and take care of it that way. Another way we can clear a float is through an overflow property. I tend not to use this or even like it for that matter, but we can look at maybe some examples here. But again, I can't say I love how this works. So we have an overflow, and an overflow tag is something we apply to a div. It's probably actually worth looking at. And in this overflow, if we do an auto and we have content that goes larger than the div that we've set, so we've taken a div and we've applied a height and width to it, right? And an overflow hidden will hide anything else we don't see. So this paragraph continues going down, but we just don't see it. When we do overflow auto, it allows us to scroll down and see all the content, or left and right and see if we have a big image, like so. If we do a scroll, it does what it thinks is best. And if we do an overflow visible, it will show us all the content even though it may break outside of the div tag. Now if we do have some floats, we can apply an overflow hidden to that thing, and it's a way that it will stop, or an overflow auto, it will stop the floats. But again, I'm not going to go into depth on that. I can't say I really like it, but the overflow is can be a useful tag if you have to show a window of content in there, but typically you're going to want to display the content anyways.